Saints of God, thank you so much for tuning in again to our position transition teachings. We thank you so much for coming and partaking of what God has given me. Today, we're going to tackle something that has been tackled many, many times, even by this teaching. But I want to share some things with you that God has shared with me concerning it, and it is how to handle or how to conquer the spirit of fear. We understand that God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Very familiar passage of scripture. We've quoted it many times, we've heard it many times, and yet we still deal with a spirit called fear. We are human. We are not exempt. There is no human that is exempt or immune from becoming afraid of something. Life is full of things that will challenge us and cause us to be afraid. I will even go so far as to say, being afraid is not a sin. Being afraid does not displease God. As a matter of fact, the only thing that will displease God is to disobey Him. As long as you know how to function in fear, it is not, I can't even say that it's not even okay. Some of the people that I know that have reached some of the highest height had to do so because they had to tackle fear first. So today we're going to look at 3 ways or 3 things that we can do that will help us conquer fear, help us control fear. Before I go into that, first of all, let me say this. Fear is a ruling demon. My personal philosophy, this is not something you can look up in the scripture, it's just my personal perspective, but I do want to share it with you. I believe that when the scripture talks about how the devil has come to steal, kill, and destroy, I believe that when he devises his plans to do that against us, he uses fear as one of those mechanisms to help him pull that off. I mean, what better way than to make you frightened and afraid, than to steal from you? You can steal from a person. It's an act of intimidation, and fear is a very intimidating spirit. To kill. Most people respond to fear in ways that are deadly. Fear has caused people to do things and function in ways that they really would not have if they were in their right capacity of mind. Destroy. Fear has caused a lot of people destruction. Things have happened because of fear. I believe fear is one of the most dangerous demons that we can conquer. Yet, because it is not of God, it is easily conquered. Let's look at how. First of all, the first way that we can do to conquer our fear is to stop giving fear respect. We do. We respect fear. We worship fear. We honor fear. I know most people that may be listening to that may disagree, but I promise you, you do. When you are in a position where God is speaking to tell you to do something, or you know that something is better done another way, yet you're afraid to change, then fear has you in its grip. You're honoring your fear, not what you know is right, not what God has said is right. Many things that God has spoken, as a matter of fact, everything that God has spoken, it's already been established. What God says will work. It is fear that keeps us from trusting God. It is fear that keeps us from obeying God. It is fear that keeps us from following the Spirit of God. Every time we are confronted with fear, how do you react? Do we do what God says to do? Unfortunately, the answer for many of us is no. It takes us time. We waste time because of fear. We waste time because we're afraid of what people may say. If you say, I don't care what people say, I promise you that in some ways you do. Sometimes you waste time because you care about the outcome. If you sense that the outcome, it may be less than stellar, then you become afraid to move. And God is saying every day, just trust me. Just trust me. I got you. Just trust me. And yet things are not being done according to the way and the plan of God. Why is that? It's fear. We're honoring fear. And every time we honor our fear, we dishonor the ways and the will of God. We must admit that. We must go back, and we cannot worship God and fear at the same time. And yet, many times, we go before God and we're worshiping our fear. We're asking God to compromise with our fear. We're asking God to conform his ways and how he has spoken to us according to our fear, not according to his power. He's given us his power. He did not give us fear. Secondly, after we stop respecting fear, we must stop internalizing the things that we felt like were mistakes. That's huge. Many of us right now are paralyzed because of things that we have tried and that we felt were failures. We felt didn't work out. We felt was a mess up, was a screw up. And so now trying again, we're afraid. We internalize the mistake, not the solution to it. Everything that we have gone through, God knows, he sees, he understands. He even said to me once, everything you've gone through, there are things I could have stopped, but I didn't for wisdom's sake. There were things he said I had to learn. There were things he said I had to know. Before I can move you in certain realms, there's wisdom you got to gain. So there are things that you have to do that may not work out the way you think it's going to work out. May not work from your perspective. But I promise you that it is working for your good. That's the word as well. Do we trust the word? The word tells us in Romans 8:28 that all things work together for our good. Why are we afraid to do then? Why are we afraid to move? I remember once God said, you cannot displease me by making mistakes and having screw-ups. He said that doesn't displease me. I've got built-in corrective measures for that. He said the only way you can displease me is to disobey me. It freed me up. It gave me a liberty that I had never experienced before. Because part of my fear was, God, I don't want to mess up what you gave me. God, I don't want anybody to suffer because of a mistake I've made. And he said, but I've got built-in corrective measures. And he does. We have an advocate with the Father. Every promise has a principle. All we have to do is follow his Spirit. His Spirit will lead us into truth. And those rare occasions when we go off on our own tangent, he's right there to bring us back to where we need to be. He's upholding us in his hands. We're not as much on our own as you may want to entertain that thought. But what does fear do? Fear keeps bringing back those mistakes. Fear keeps bringing back the results of those mistakes. Fear keeps letting us relive all of those things and all of those emotions we felt. It keeps letting us relive the embarrassment. It keeps letting us focus on what we felt like we lost. It keeps letting us look at those things that we thought that we could do and we failed to do. It keeps letting us hear in our ears the whispers and the jeers that we may have suffered because we tried and it didn't work out like we wanted to. So fear keeps doing that. As long as we internalize those things, we'll be paralyzed in fear. I remember when I met Ralph Kettner, the late Ralph Kettner, and he was telling me about how he started Food Lion. Out of all the things he said, this is the one thing that always resonates with me when I think of him. He talked about how many efforts he had to try before he succeeded in Food Lion. Ladies and gentlemen, it was more than two. He kept trying. He told me that he failed so many times. He tried so many times and it didn't work, that people who had been investing and backing him stopped backing him. And what he had to do was go and try to find funding other places. So he began to solicit people who, some of them were strangers. Some of them he didn't even know. He said sometimes he even went through the phone book and called people, telling them what he was trying to do. That's gutsy. As a result of his continuing efforts, not only do we still enjoy Food Lion and shopping at Food Lion, but there was a time when Salisbury, North Carolina had more millionaires than most cities in the United States. All because one man wasn't afraid to continue to fight for his vision. He wouldn't internalize all of his mistakes. He didn't internalize all the times when his close rich friends were telling him, I'm not going to fool with this anymore, Ralph. He didn't internalize that. He just looked for another way. Can you say you're doing that? How much of your vision have you thrown away because something didn't work out? You internalized the result of your mistake rather than fighting through that and then coming on the other end of the victory. You're still waiting. You're still waiting. You're still waiting. Instead of fighting, you're waiting. Instead of fighting, you're sitting here complacent. Instead of fighting, you've gone content to have nothing. This is not God's fault. This is not the government's fault. This is your fault for internalizing the things and allowing fear to have a voice. Lastly, the last thing, we must learn that even when we're afraid, to confront fear. You got to learn how to start talking to fear. You got to learn how to let fear know, yeah, I see you. Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, I see the effects of what you can do. Yeah, I know we've been here before. But this time I'm going to confront you. This time, regardless of what it may cost me, I'm going to live for God. Regardless of what it may cost me, I'm going to do my assignment. Regardless of what it may cost me, I'm going to give myself a chance to have what I deserve from the Lord. Have what I deserve out of life. Don't let fear take from you what you deserve to have. God says you deserve it. You must agree with that. I challenge you this week that every time you think about your vision, every time you think about an assignment God has given you, every time you confront an opportunity and you become a little bit afraid, think of these words. Conquer that fear. Don't internalize what has happened. Stop worshiping it and confront it head on. God bless you. I'll see you next week.